Hello, everybody. This is Tommy's Outdoors, episode 12. And in this episode, my guest is my good buddy, Kuba Standera. This guy dedicated his life to one thing fishing. Fishing with rod and line, more specifically, which we know as angling. So, just to name a few, he was really focused on pike fishing. Then he was really focused on, and he is really focused at the moment on bass fishing, on sea bass fishing, both on the lures and a fly. He's fishing from kayak. He was one of the founders, a co-founder and former editor of Polish fly fishing magazine. He worked as a fishing guide, fishing for Tuna in Spain. You can spend quite a long time just talking what he was doing and what he's done in his life. So I guess the best we can do is just without any further ado, go ahead and listen what he has to say. Ladies and gentlemen, Kuba Standera. Hello, I'm here with a true legend of angling, Kuba Standera. How are you, sir?
Don't go there, man. Don't go there. Thanks for having me.
I was wondering whether I should introduce yourself for our listeners first, and then bias yourself. How are you gonna introduce yourself, or maybe you're gonna go first? So go first and introduce yourself, and then I'm gonna correct that because that's gonna be too humble, I know.
Okay. My name is Kuba. I'm from Poland. I live in Ireland for last 13 years. I moved to Ireland because of fishing. That was my main concern when choosing, place to live, place where you can land your interest and start your family. Fishing is one of the most important factors. So for first few years, I used to live in Athlone. Then I moved to Dungarvan, all because of saltwater addiction. Then for 7 months, I was a captain on a tuna boat. We've been doing fly fishing for tuna and guiding for tuna. Our operation was based on Gibraltar. Not much tuna seems to be happening in Dungarvan, so that was the better place.
I just noticed that I'm saying, listeners, just notice that the most important factor is fishing.
Fishing.
That's why he's a true legend. So you've been at the moment you can be described as a bass angler, I think.
Saltwater junkie.
Saltwater. Although that probably is not fair because that is very narrow focus, and you're so much more. You've been pike fishing.
Yeah,
you've been
a lot.
You've been tuna fishing. You do bass fishing, saltwater bass fishing. You've been a journalist.
Yeah, that's
you're very active on the internet forums, and now finally you're manufacturing handmade lures for bass fishing.
Yeah.
So that's a portfolio that is so broad, like everything happened. And maybe just for the benefit of our listeners, how I got to meet you is through our friend Tom, who is another legend.
He's not a legend, he's a god.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
When it comes to fishing, this guy is just, new incarnation of god of fishing.
That's it. That's what more spiritually enriching people are saying. His incarnation of God of fishing.
I just have a picture of him and I'm just praying to him. And, only 5 minutes before I go fishing every day. But I thought it helps.
That helps. So anyway, I was happy enough to befriend him very early, and then he kind of introduced us back in Athlone. for where we went for pike fishing on the
pike fishing on the Shannon River,
and that was like a back in the days. It was like 10 years ago or more.
I think that it might be 12 years ago,
or maybe 12 years ago.
It was
so that was
long time ago.
So that was let's talk about then pike fishing. And you've been catching mainly fishing for pike using hard lures,
and fly fishing,
artificial lures, and fly fishing. So tell us about the technique and why that method, because I think that a lot of people are just dead biting for pike and kind of deem that method more producing more results. What did you say about that?
For 100%, dead bait fishing with dead mackerel or dead roach, whatever people tends to choose, I think it's more productive.
Yeah.
If you are targeting really big pikes, I think that chances of hooking one are much greater with a dead bait.
On a dead bait.
But I'm kind of, when it comes to fishing, for me, I'm kind of ADD, and that's a problem. If I'm supposed to sit somewhere and wait for the fish to come to me, oh Jesus, I think life is too short.
It's just boring, right?
It's not boring. It's just, I see this as a waste of time. I prefer to hunt for the fish more actively, target them, try to localize them, cover more water.
Yeah.
Then I think
there's that adventure element to that, I guess.
Yes, and also kind of a virtue of being able to trick the apex predator of the river on piece of plastic, of piece of rubber, a few feathers and hook.
We had that conversation back in Atlanta about like, okay, how the artificial. I remember that because you made a very good point, like, how that artificial lure looks like. It's like, it's supposed to look like a fish, so the pike thinks that, and you go like, no, just look at it. That doesn't look like a fish, and doesn't move like a fish. And then someone says like, well, maybe like a crippled fish. It's like, no, not like a crippled fish. Maybe like a fish from Mars. So like, okay, it's a crippled fish from Mars.
Space fish.
It's a space fish, and that's why. So I suppose it's just. But going back to dead baiting. You say it's more productive. It's probably because you have an added smell element to it, and no surprisingly, mackerel is so good because it's so much oily.
Yes, of course, and I think that we are, because if it's stationary, the sand is transferring into the water quite efficiently, especially during the colder months when fish are not as active as during the spring or autumn.
Yeah.
My idea is that, you are not trying to find a fish, you are trying to seduce the fish to come to you with a dead bait.
Yeah.
And, you are attacking much more senses with the dead bait than with the lure fishing or fly fishing especially.
Yeah.
If you are fly fishing, there is only the movement in the water.
Yeah.
And just the shape and the color of your fly.
Yeah.
Those flies, they do not have much more action. Rattles from trebles, split rings, rattles inside the lures, stuff that you usually have when you are spinning or casting for.
Do you think that there is that people who are fishing using lures or fly fishing, they looking down a little bit on anglers who are doing like the more stationary fishing with the dead bait and so on?
That's for sure. I think that generally in our population, people try to compensate for different aspects of the
right. So it's like this tribalism, like, we doing just the bait fishing.
But honestly, Jesus, we are not creating cure for cancer. We are not exploring new planet. We are trying to catch one of the most primitive animals we can find. Chill out. So it's supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be fun for everyone.
That people are taking that way too seriously.
I think so. If you see all those battles on the internet, people, good friends which are sometimes not talking with each other, just because of the way that they are fishing or stuff like this. It's just absurd.
Yeah. On that point, again, back in the days where we met for the first time, there was a pre-Facebook times, I think.
Oh, there was no sign of Facebook.
There was no sign of Facebook.
2006, maybe 2007.
Yeah, exactly. And then, so the message boards were the thing, and actually, both myself and Tom and yourself and that whole, we kind of get to know each other and find each other in Ireland through the message boards or bulletin boards or whatever you call it. And there was a number of those, and you could see that exactly. Arguments going for 300 pages about
the braid that people are using, type of rods that they are using, type of lures that they are using. Like, what's the point? We are supposed to first of all enjoy ourselves, fulfill our most primitive instincts of hunting, and then try to conserve and preserve the ability of spending that time for future generations. That's all that fishing should be about.
Exactly. I'm actually glad you said it. It's a very important part of conservation. This is something I'm trying to drive throughout the podcast, that hunting and fishing and in general outdoors, the role in conservation and habitat protection and really all the hunters and anglers, they are conservationists, or at least they should be.
They should be. Unfortunately, it's not very much. And just yesterday, I came back from fishing the Shannon, exactly the same spot that we used to fish when we met for the first time.
Yeah.
And to be honest, it's kind of a dreadful thing. We've been launching our kayaks. First thing that we saw was a dead pike, probably around 90 centimeters, just floating in a river.
Yeah.
Then, the places that I really know well, the places that I used to fish for years, I feel in them like, in my room.
Mm-hmm.
I know exact spots, every single stones and rocks there.
Mm-hmm.
They are just empty.
Yeah.
And for me, it's just devastating how pike fishing, generally fishing, how it has deteriorated in our lifetime.
That's an interesting thing, because I think that there is not much appreciation for pike fishing in Ireland, which is I don't know, and surely there's somebody right now listening to that podcast saying like, oh, what are you saying? But I think that overall even there are some governmental programs to kind of call pike.
New proposed bylaws, which are supposed to establish trout waters. But surprisingly, they also think about establishing trout waters within the Shannon system.
Yeah.
Elimination of the pike from places like Loch
Yeah.
It's just insane.
It's crazy.
It's just a crime. It's just a crime against environment. Future generations, they will suffer because of stupidity, short sights, and primitive attitude of people who are responsible for making those decisions. The Minister of Environment and Fishing, it looks like he's rejecting all the pike anglers' voices.
Yeah.
I can understand that his background and his constituency is based in Oughterard and around the lakes of Loch Corrib.
Yeah.
So probably the influence of trout anglers.
Oh yeah, no doubt. There's no doubt. But in general, I think that pike is not appreciated as such a good sporting fish. And
it's surprising because even if you completely skip the aspect of I prefer to fish for trout, I prefer to fish for salmon, bass or pike, like personal preferences. I think that important thing to look on is just the fact how much money it can bring to local societies.
Yeah.
Every angler going to Shannon, traveling from France, traveling from Netherlands, Spain, Poland, Russia, Denmark, so many countries, they need to pay for their B&B, they need to buy some tackle, they need to get a guide, rent a boat.
Yep.
Every pike.
Petrol,
I think that,
Oh, that's a huge aspect, and I think that in general, driving the point of the value of the fish alive and the contribution to the economy.
But it's just creating jobs.
Yeah.
That's my point. And very, very often we anglers, people who are really good anglers and become a guide, dedicated very, very huge parts of their life towards fishing and towards creating a business for themselves.
Yep.
And introducing such laws, it's just absurd, Especially like all this discussion about pike not being native to island and pike destroying trouts.
That's a huge non-native issue. Let's say it's across the world, and I'm fascinated by it because I'm probably gonna butcher that, but there's a it might be even on Hawaii or maybe some other island where there's a species of deer, right? And that species of deer is deemed not native, and there's the usual conversation, and then native people who are living on that island saying like, hang on a minute, how it's not native? Those deer were there before we arrived. How we're native in the so like how far? So and this is like a repeated pattern. Like how long back? How you have to go in the history?
When would you establish the point that something is native? Or
exactly.
Not? Because from my point
where
of
you
view,
draw the line.
Cattle is not native to Ireland.
Yeah,
they were brought by Cubans. Having cattle, all the farming industry has 1,000 times more impact, even on the trout stocks, than any pikes.
Yeah.
The other thing is there is no conflict of interest between the pike and trout. If you look at the places that both species existed permanently, like Middle Sweden, huge lakes, they do have ferox trout in them, and both species cohabiting those lakes for the last eons. As long as we can separate them. Both northern pike and brown trout and different variations of brown trout. They are living in the same systems, in the same rivers, in the same lakes, and it's happening for thousands of years without wiping out trout populations that it's suggested. And for me, blaming pike, killing pike, killing thousands of fish, just because of some sick idea that pikes are destroying trout stocks, without looking at the aspects of spawning grounds, water quality, deteriorating water quality when it comes to insecticides. Like you can't skip those aspects. It's just absurd.
I know. All right. Before we're gonna bore to death and go too much our listeners and go too much political, pike fishing. What would be your there is a blog post actually on the website where I wrote a short piece about jerkbait fishing and fishing for pike or jerkbait as a kind of quintessential way of fishing for pike in a spring on the shallow water. And this is what I personally enjoying the most, where you can see the vessel. So anyone interested, go to the website tommysoutdoors.com and have a read. But so for me, this is the best way of fishing for pike. I enjoying the most. What's your preferred way of fishing for pike that you're enjoying the most?
Definitely fly fishing.
Fly fishing. Tell us about it.
The idea of creating your own flies, tying them at home, trying to establish new designs, trying to add new colors, then just fly casting, that's a great thing. And for me, the most important thing is, as you are fly fishing, as you are stripping your line, you hold your line in your fingers. So every single movement of the fly, you feel it instantly. It's not being transferred through the rod, through the multiplier, through the reel, braid and everything. You feel it instantly.
Right.
Every sniff that pikes do on your fly, you will notice it.
Yeah. But is it not limited only for like a shallow water fishing?
I wouldn't
for
say
fly?
so. I'm doing a lot of fly fishing for pollocks. That's kind of my second favorite thing in fly fishing. Fly fishing for pollocks. That's a great sport.
Yeah.
And regularly I'm losing flies fishing spots 12, 15 meters deep.
Right. Okay, so explain that please to me and to our listeners. So in general, that what's in my head, the idea of fly fishing is that your bait, which is your fly, is very light.
Yeah.
Well, it's a fly, right? Compared to your heavy hard lure that weighs.
Yes, but
150.
I think that one of the most misleading things is calling the lure that you are using a fly, because it's usually associated, fly fishing is usually associated with fly fishing for brown trout. So I think that your listeners might be getting the idea that we are thinking about imitation of an insect.
Yeah. Oh, don't
Nothing
worry
like
about
this.
my listeners. Don't worry about me. Because
It's
that's
nothing
my
like
that's
this.
my idea that the fly is very light, right?
Yeah,
So actually you casting the
You are casting with your
the line. You casting the line.
You are casting the line, so it's
Right, instead-
different dynamic of casting.
Exactly. So not your heavy lure is pulling the line of the reel,
Yeah.
and the fly fishing you're casting actual line, which is
Yeah,
heavy.
it's
right?
just-
So if the fishing element, right, the lure, the fly is so light, it's never gonna sink, right? So if you have a fly that is heavy enough to penetrate the water and go down,
It's a massacre to cast. It's a nightmare. For
well,
casting.
yeah, so then you can make an argument. Is it still a fly fishing if, in fact, your fly is, how heavy? It's a weight of your regular lure.
Usually, I'm trying to avoid flies which are over 3 grams in weight.
Okay, how 3-gram fly
You use
sink into the water?
different densities of fly lines. Some of them are floating. Some of them are fast sinking.
Okay.
Some of them will sink like a rock.
So that's the line that is pulling the fly
Exactly
deep into the
deep
water.
into the water.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Flies, I'm trying to avoid adding any weight to them. The only exception for me is flies for pollock, because you need to go really fast, really deep.
Right.
But when I'm fly fishing for pike, the only heavy element of the fly that's having more density than the water itself is just a hook.
Right.
That's all. That's all the weight. Hook and the trace for
Yeah.
steel trace or titanium trace.
Would you agree that on the fly you're not gonna catch pike as big as with the other methods?
No.
Okay.
I'd say that it is dozen times more difficult. But I think that there are some moments where fly fishing is really showing off, especially around the winter time.
Yeah.
The ability to present your fly almost motionless, and all those furs, feathers, synthetic fibers, they are vibrating. They are, if you design your fly properly, there is so much life in it. It's moving all the time. All those fibers are moving.
Yeah.
And because the fly itself is almost weightless, all the depth is gained through the fly line.
Right.
You can almost like hang your fly in front of the fish.
Yeah.
You can do pauses which are a dozen seconds long.
Yeah.
When the fly is almost motionless.
Sure. So you're saying,
and then you are moving it, and it's this vibrating, pulsating action of the fly.
So the presentation is much more.
It's just different.
It's different.
It's not more. It's not less. It's just different. And I think that in the waters which are under heavy angling pressure, I think that fly can be very productive. I have a very good friend, Christopher.
Yeah.
And he's a very avid fly fisherman.
Yeah.
And he's doing a lot of his fly fishing is being done on the canals.
Yeah.
And as we all know, canals are under heavy, constant angling pressure.
Yeah.
And the results that he's getting with a fly rod,
I
don't think that I'd be able to get them with the lures.
Is that the case of like you doing something else? So the fish is
They haven't seen it. Like
exactly.
I think
that there's so much pressure, and everybody's just putting in the lures and the crankbites, jerk bites, whatever you name it.
Same stuff.
And then all of a sudden, there's something else
that they haven't seen.
Do you think then that the fish has this ability to kind of, because like I said, the fish is fairly simple creature, very basic, right? Primitive. So do you think that it has this ability to kind of connect, especially pike, because we all know that you cast the lure, the pike attacks, and it kind of you didn't hook it up, and then you cast it again, and the same fish. And I don't know if it happened to you. It certainly happened to me and to many anglers that you catch a fish, you pull it out of the water, you measure it, you take a photos, whatever, you release the fish, and 10 minutes later, 15 minutes later, the same fish hits the same lure. It's like, whoa, right? Actually, that fish wasn't bothered too much. I'm talking about pike. Maybe that happens to other fish. So how that goes, that fact goes with the theory, like, well, if you're going to be fishing something that the fish never seen before, then you have a better results. It's kind of like, how do you reconcile the both?
I think that I would start my answer with obviously pikes are not the sharpest knife in the drawer, just to put it in a delicate way. They won't win any chess competition, even with my dog. That's the one thing. Then the other, I used to raise a pike in a fish tank. I had
that's
them
interesting.
For almost 2 years, pair of pikes.
Right. Was it like for fun, or was it like a scientific project, or was it?
It was just for fun,
Okay.
I had a fish tank, and a friend of mine, he was emptying his. It was like a small pond, and he found 2 pikes. They were almost like fingerlings.
Right.
And he gave me a call, and he said, like, do you want? I have 2 tiny little pikes. They were probably around maybe 9 centimeters long at this time. And I got them into my fish tank. It was a cold water fish tank, and I had this ability of observing them through 2 seasons. And to my surprise, there were moments when they were not feeding completely. They were completely switched off, apathic, lethargic, not responding to anything.
Was it because of the unnatural environment of the fish?
Yes, obviously.
Okay.
No. It was
I
because
thought you were
of
trying
the
to make the point about their
natural environment, differences in weather. I think that the most important factor was the atmospheric pressure.
Yeah.
Because obviously they were not affected by the weather like the wild fish. They had the constant light.
Yeah.
Constant water temperature. Yeah. All those factors
TV
were all those factors were constant. So the only thing that was changing for them was atmospheric pressure.
Sure.
And I saw them being very lethargic, and then suddenly it was just like flipping a switch.
Yeah.
They were just getting insane. They were attacking all the fish.
Right.
Few times I saw them, after swallowing 3 small roaches.
Yeah.
The tail of the last roach was just
sticking out,
stretching out from the mouth of the pike, and the fish was attacking the 4th one. And because it was unable to swallow anymore, it was so full, it was just holding him in his mouth in the corner of fish tank, not allowing him to escape.
Right.
So I think that yes, obviously there are moments when you can get a pike, maybe 2, or even maybe it's possible even to catch the same fish 3 times.
Yeah.
Because they are just getting mental.
I remember I remember the conversation that we had in your old place when it was probably day before fishing, so we were sitting and having a beer, and we kind of start unleashing all the theories about pike fishing, pressure this, pressure that, and so on. And then you kind of rolled into the kitchen. It's like, guys, but the pike doesn't know any of that. No. They didn't get the memo. They
are not very smart.
They didn't know any of that. We're probably going to catch them.
But the thing is, the same way as you can train your dog, the same way as you can train even the most primitive animals.
Yeah.
Which pike, I will find.
Arguably, they are.
They are not very complicated animals.
Yeah.
But what they are very well suited to their environment killing machines.
Yeah. Oh, no doubt.
So thousands, if not hundreds of thousands years of evolution. They selected proper genes and proper behaviors. So the first question was, do you think that fly is more effective? Can be more effective because they haven't seen some.
No, I think
so.
Yeah.
I think so, and I see this very often. New lures are being introduced to the market.
Yeah.
They are harvesting fish a lot for first maybe 2 or 3 seasons, and then fish seems to be not responding as well to them.
That's an interesting point, because I was even wondering, we all know that saying that any lure needs to catch an angler first,
of course,
before it catches a fish, and I'm kind of the in the camp. There are many different camps when it comes to lures, and to your earlier conversation, there are people who are doing this and that, and they just swarm by. But I'm in the camp that I think that actually most of the marketing machine when it comes to lures is just bullshit, and just like there's very little difference, and I was even wondering, can an angler successfully catch fish on a lure that he himself doesn't believe is a good lure for the fish? It doesn't matter whether the fish thinks about it or not.
It can happen, by the accident.
Yeah.
But
so do you think? So where I'm heading with that is, do you think that once you have a good lure that works for you, you believe in it, and you're catching fish on it, you just stick to it, you just fish for that, with that lure, don't bother? Or do you think that, you need to be changing the lures, you need to be experimenting, and that each next generation of the lures is better than the previous one, and so on and so on? So what's your take on that?
I will just tell you the anecdote.
Yeah.
I will translate this anecdote from Polish conditions into Irish conditions,
right? Sure.
Just to make it more understandable.
Sure.
Very respected anglers. One of the nestors of Polish fly fishing. They went fly fishing for salmon in Poland.
Yeah.
And they had a lot of success
Mm-hmm.
using the fly. Let's translate it like Alice shrimp.
Yeah.
And after they came back after a week of fly fishing for salmon, they were saying, Alice shrimp, it's just basically the single best fly for salmon that we've ever used, that was ever created.
Right.
And then someone asked them, but how long did you fish with any other? And they said, oh, no. All 3 of us, we've been constantly fishing with this one fly. So that's the thing,
Yeah.
It's
has
not
to be the best.
It's not the lure that's catching the fish.
Exactly.
It's the angler.
Yes.
Different lures, they have their different times that they can be used. There is no point on using a surface lure if the fish are not responding to it. There is no point on using deep diving lure if fish are targeting their prey on the surface.
True. So I totally agree. You gotta have a lure that is, basic color matches whether it is, the environment, essentially natural.
Not really, because
but so what I'm saying is, it matters whether lure is bright or dark.
Yes, because
but it doesn't matter whether it is, a little bit yellowish or is it a little bit white. That probably doesn't matter.
That's a thing that many people do not understand. So many fish that we are targeting are colorblind.
Yeah.
Exactly. I'd even risk saying that most of them are colorblind.
Yeah.
That's the one thing. Then,
going back to the very simple and primitive mechanism,
do not see the same light spectrum as we do, and that's a scientific fact.
Exactly.
They see more into the UV light than to what we call a visible light.
Yeah.
So our eye is not a fish eye.
Exactly.
And our idea of lures, how they look very similar, how they behave very naturally.
That goes to the point of the crippled fish from Mars.
Exactly.
We started.
If you are fishing with dead bait, if you are fishing sometimes people are fishing with live sandeel, which for me is just cruelty, and I'm strongly against it. But it is as close imitation to natural prey as we can get.
No,
But then if you are fishing with any lure which is pink, chartreuse, orange, even if it's painted like a mackerel,
it doesn't look like a mackerel, especially for fish, which
Well,
you
I'd
mentioned
say,
sees it completely differently.
if you get a 12 or 15 centimeters hard lure for bass, move it through the water, see the action, see the vibration, see everything, and then try to watch how mackerels behave, how they look like.
Yeah.
They are nothing.
Nothing like. Well, there's just this theory that the fish is just pissed off at that thing that is there.
I think
rather than seeing it's a
more
food.
Curiosity than there are some moments when fish are active. Mm-hmm. I think that it might be very connected with the hormones and how they are active or how they are not active.
Yeah.
It might be connected with the atmospheric pressure, tides, water visibility.
Yeah.
But when I'm thinking about choosing my lure, first of all, I'm thinking about the size of fish that I want to target. Then
really?
I'm trying to.
How do you select the lure versus size of the fish that you want to target?
For example, I used to live and fish in Spain for almost a year. Full season, and there were some days when I was just unable to go with my boat. Wind was too strong, so I was shore fishing. Sometimes I had only 2 hours in the evening, so I decided just to go for sea bass.
Yeah,
Spanish sea bass tends to be much smaller than Irish one.
Yeah,
especially during the summertime. During the winter, they do have enormous fish, like enormous fish. You are talking about fish over 20 pounds.
Wow,
that's enormous for a sea bass.
Wow,
but those fish, summer ones, they are around 30, maybe 35 centimeters long. So
you're saying you're gonna,
no point on using
like a bigger lure for the bigger fish? Is that
no? If you are limited to target the smaller ones, there is no point on using lure that is 15 centimeters long.
Yeah,
lure that will be okay here on Copper Coast for big bass.
Yeah.
Probably won't be as successful with the fish of 30 centimeters or 35 centimeters long. Sure.
All right. So that's a pike fishing. So that was like a one chapter, really. And then after you kind of explored all the options for pike fishing around the Shannon River system and lakes surrounding that, you moved to Copper Coast and you decided you're going to go after sea bass.
Yeah, it's because of Tom. He was the first one who started to spreading this disease of saltwater.
Yeah, that's true. He learned me. I learned from him. He taught me everything I know about bass fishing. Yeah. Give me all the basics, and I remember in the early days when we were trying. Okay, what are the actual lures that works best for bass, and we were using those little pink twisters and kind of figuring out because they look like a shrimp a little bit and whatever, and all the local people fishing for bass, it was like they have these massive lures that's supposed to be imitating mackerel, outside of people who are just basically bottom fishing. Because that was the main way of fishing for bass. You get a lugworm or whatever, ragworm, and you put it in the bottom. So people who are spinning for bass are having these huge, large lures that looking like mackerel. I remember I met a guy, and he was carrying a spinning rod and whatever. I said, "Oh, you're fishing here?" Like with tendency anglers. Yeah, it's a spot. People fishing for bass. And okay, and. Have you caught anything recently? Oh, no, like 7 years I haven't caught anything. Okay.
That's not very good.
Okay, it's probably not much point, getting knowledge from, you for 7 years you've been unsuccessful. So we were trying to figure out, but Tom, like we said, he put so immense amount of work into figuring out, and here's another story. About Tom, where we had a nice fishing spot, and we were fishing in the summer, and it was a great result. It was like a world-class fishing. And then the following year, I call him and I say, well, maybe I'm gonna put it and see that spot if there's a fish there. I said, no, the fish there is like around March, and it was like middle of February, and I go like, how do you know they're about March? Because I was trying to every day in the past year. It's like, oh, hang on a minute. So you're telling me that you've been trying almost every day for 3 months in winter, wind, rain? Yes. How otherwise I would know when they show up there?
You just have to consider that some of the anglers, they really do spend a lot of time.
Exactly.
20 days fishing every month. Maybe not full day, 2 or 3 hours, but they really live with the pulse of the ocean, with the salt water.
Exactly. So let's go back to you. So you obviously been under influence from Tom, like I was, and I am to that point. And then so you decided you're just gonna basically pack your stuff and move to the Copper Coast, and now you're gonna go after bass. How was it? How was that the beginning? Because I remember
21 days
and all that. Yeah.
21 days without even a take.
Yeah, it was hard going at the beginning.
I was not working at the time, so I had all the time in a day.
Obviously, you were working on bass fishing.
Yes. Sometimes 6 hours every day. But if you are coming from pike fishing, just the idea of understanding how the tides work, how winds affect tide, moon phases, all this stuff that it's just basic for saltwater fishing.
Yeah, tide drives everything, right?
Exactly. It just took me some time, and then all the area here. That's the problem if you are living in Dungarvan. Mm-hmm. Every single spot that you can park your car looks like a bass spot. And the worst thing is, it is a bass spot.
That's the best thing in my book.
But it's just so complicated because those fish are moving around. And, like, for a few hours they are here, for a few hours they are here.
Yeah.
They are entering some spots only when on the spring tides, which are very high, and some other spots they are staying then on it's basically a watercraft. I think that
how it is.
I couldn't express it more. Unless you choose to hire a guide who will show you, you cannot buy fishing.
Yeah.
All the best tackle, all the best Japanese lures, all the best brace that you paid 80 euros for a spool, super duper reels, rods. You can spend thousands on a tackle, but it won't catch a fish.
No,
if you are clueless.
Let's just jump.
If you are clueless, you won't catch a fish.
Yeah.
If you know your place, you don't have to be super expert angler, professional, like real god of fishing.
Yeah.
You just need to know your one spot. You just need to know what you are doing. You can be using lure which is €2.50, just a simple metal spoon, just the cheapest tackle you can get, and you will be catching more fish than guys, even advanced anglers.
Well, because the first thing is the fish needs to be there.
That's the one thing, and then you have to understand the water, why the fish is there, how it's moving, all those important factors that just came from spending hours, days, weeks, and months on the shore or on your kayak or on your boat. Constant failures, losing fish, not catching any fish.
So what was the breakthrough for you after you moved in and you spent countless of hours of frustration on the shore? And finally, it was a breakthrough. So
I was just driving on my way to the Copper Coast.
Yeah.
There is this road which goes just on the side of the cliff, so you can see all the water, and it's on the Clonia beach. I was just driving on the road, and I saw a car parked just middle of nowhere. There was no reason to park your car there, and because the road was so narrow, I had to slow down. And as I was passing the car, just at the edge of my eye, I saw sticker with angler fishing, or it was maybe some kind of manufacturer of tackle or something like that. So I knew that the
fishing sticker.
Yeah, fishing sticker. So I basically stopped my car. I went to the cliff to look down,
and there he is,
and there was a guy fishing. So I decided, I have few hours to spare. I will join him. I started a chat with him. He was a very nice fellow. He traveled to Dungarvan from Wales, I think.
Oh, so not local.
Not local. He was a
Alright.
visiting angler.
All right.
And we share a few fishing
Sometimes
stories.
not locals knows all the spots because they're traveling long distance, so they prepared.
They do their homework.
I notice that quite often, that non-locals know more spots, and that not necessarily that goes for fishing. It also goes, for example, for cycling, where non-locals know more, like a back roads that are good for cycling.
I think that they are
locals.
not getting into these habits of doing the same thing every single time.
Yeah.
And that was a breakthrough for me.
Right.
He just asked me, if you want, just stand on a rock next to me. I explained all.
But it was a breakthrough because he walked you through how to fish, how to do the fishing in the area, or whether he just shows you the spot, or was it just like this kind of, here's a guy who knows what he's doing in the area, I'm gonna watch him. And
no, it was just like, it was 21 days without even contact with fish.
Mm-hmm.
It was start of November, so maybe not the hottest month for bass fishing.
No, definitely.
And I was getting more and more frustrated. I know that winter is coming.
Was it November?
End of October, maybe November.
Okay, so that's fairly late in the season.
Very late. And, I was kind of depressed. 3 weeks, in those 3 weeks, 21 days, I think that
And you just moved in with your house and the family.
And I had
for bass fishing. There was no bass around to be seen.
So I just basically explained all the background that's happening, and he said, "Oh Jesus, you are a poor lad." And he said, like, I didn't catch anything today, but it's supposed to be a good spot. So if you want, the beach is so long, just stand on the rock next to me, and we can have a chat and go fishing.
Yeah.
So that's what I've done, and maybe in the third cast, I hooked my first bass, which was, I think, over 60 centimeters long.
Whoa.
So it was like,
whoa, nice fish.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we know.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. And yeah, that's how it started. I started to gain confidence in what I'm doing. That was the breakthrough.
That's so massive. To be kind of to have that sort of, be convinced, like, yeah, that's what I'm doing.
I think that, the problem is that I had so many options, so many lures, so many ways of retrieve those lures, presentation of those lures, so many spots that you can fish. And
it was too much. There was
no confidence, there was no verification of what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So then, it was a breakthrough. I started fishing that spot more often. I started catching fish there.
Yeah.
Up to the winter. And then spring came and I started moving around.
Right, with more confidence and more. Okay, and that's how we started fishing. How it's going right now for you, bass fishing?
Not really good. Because of my own fault, I do not spend time bass fishing.
Right.
You are unable to catch any fish if you are not fishing for them.
Yeah.
For me, the problem was like mind-changing experience of fly fishing and general fishing in the Strait of Gibraltar.
And you're fishing. You're mainly fly fishing for bass now, or are you doing
lure fishing? I used to do a lot of fly fishing for bass, but because I started my own business of manufacturing lures, now I'm kind of more doing lure fishing.
Yeah.
You see, the problem.
So you're basically your research and development.
Yeah, exactly.
While fishing.
Exactly.
That's what's going on.
The problem with fishing for bass is, here in Ireland or in UK, it's the ultimate saltwater predator.
Yeah.
Unless you will go towards shark fishing, there's not much of.
I was gonna say that. Okay, that's not, that's a.
But that's.
You're not fishing with the lures for shark.
You can.
But you're not doing that usually.
There are crews here in Ireland doing fly fishing for blue sharks, which is completely insane.
Yeah, have you heard how you're fishing for marlin with a fly?
Yeah, with teasers. Yeah.
It's basically trawling for marlin, and then when you see the fish, you kind
swapping teaser.
You quickly cast a fly. That's just bullshit.
I know. No, I think it's
No, I heard I think I heard on the Meat Eater podcast where they would say like, if the guy goes with a fly rod and spots the bait ball and spots the marlin feeding on that bait ball and gets the boat close and casts the fly into that bait ball and marlin hits the fly, that guy caught marlin on the fly. But when you're actually doing trolling and then you have a teasers and you scrub the teaser and then you finally cast the fly and it's just not really fly fishing. I kind of...
The question for me would be, was it this guy that caught a fish or the skipper?
Oh, no, well, yeah.
That's the thing,
That's up to...
If you are completely directed and he's saying, no, cast your fly, 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock or whatever is he saying.
That's exactly it.
Is it your success or is it the success of the skipper who was able to present you with the fish ready to be harvested?
Yeah. Anyway, let's roll it back a little bit. So you're doing mainly bass fishing at the moment. So I want to touch on a maybe 2 more or 3 more subjects. So bass fishing, one thing. Tuna fishing. That was that episode in Spain, and when we're doing tuna fishing, you've been guiding for tuna.
And
tell us about it. Tell us about it.
That was the same thing.
So essentially, you get fed up with all those bass that you were catching at the time.
No,
you got your family.
Just the other thing,
and you moved to Spain.
It's just so cold. I'm really in love with Ireland, and I think that for me, Ireland is the hardest drug you can ever get. It's so addictive to live here. The atmosphere of the place. It's kind of. It seems to be like a virus flowing in your bloodstream, and if you are trying to move out from Ireland, it will still drag
you back.
Yeah. So I think that once you spend some time in Ireland, it is in your bloodstream. At least in my case. But I think that it was the fact of being so cold. Every time you go fishing, you have to put your waders, you have to put your jacket, jumper, waterproof stuff. It's raining only 320 days per year.
Yeah, we got a good 2 weeks with no rain.
Yeah, 5 years ago. Something like this. So
you moved to Spain.
Yeah, I met a friend and he just invited me, come fishing for a day or two. I landed there for 3 days of fishing and it completely blew my mind,
Yeah.
Before that, the only thing that I was considering, like Spain and fishing, getting a catfish on Rio Ebro.
Yeah.
That's what everyone was doing.
Oh, yeah, that was a staple.
The idea that you can get tuna, that you can get marlins, that you can get leerfish, bass, huge bass, and there is the spotted bass, which is very similar but different fish.
Oh, I think in the freshwater they have a smallmouth, I think.
Largemouth.
This is large.
You have different types of barbel. One of the biggest pikes you can get there in Spain. Not many people know about this. But I think that in years to come, Spain will be developed as one of the top pike destinations.
Oh, really?
Especially with the ideas that Irish government is trying to impose on pike waters here.
Right.
That will be a disaster to pike fishing. How many times you can go to Sweden and fish the same lake, same lakes? People are looking for new challenges, and I think that fishing for pike in Spain is one of them. Those fish are huge, like massive.
Yeah.
Massive.
Yeah.
I think that they might be one of the biggest ones in Europe.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I was. Anyway.
But the idea that in one place you get, instead of just bass and maybe pollock, I'm a huge fan of fishing for pollocks, both with lures.
That's changed. That you changed your mind on pollock. I remember you were not that keen on pollock.
I started appreciating them when I started to target them with delicate tackle.
Okay.
Light spin
where
tackle.
They have an opportunity to put up a fight.
Yeah. Light tackle or fly fishing for pollocks, it completely changed my attitude towards them.
Okay.
I think that very often people see them as kind of very easy, not worthy of the real macho angler, professional angler target. But if you try to go after them with bass gear instead of heavy boat stuff, you will really appreciate the fight that they are able to put on. And if you fish for them regularly, you will see that they are not as easy as you may think.
Yeah, because this is an important point, that people are often using too heavy tackle.
Yeah.
Especially when they're going boat fishing, they get these rods that you can really target a blue shark with them.
That's my point.
And they're fishing for whiting.
If you are fishing with tuna tackle and catching pollock, why are you surprised that it's not putting a good fight?
Yeah.
If you can basically swirl them in the air a few times on the rod. My idea is pollocks are great, but if you are lure fishing or fly fishing, basically you have 3 species here: mullet, pollock, and bass. That's all.
Yeah.
In Spain
and pike, if you're willing to try.
Not in saltwater.
But
in Spain you have barracudas, bluefish, leaderfish.
It's much warmer water, so naturally
probably around 20 species that you can target with a fly rod in saltwater. Different types of tuna: big eye tuna, bluefin tuna, albacore, bonitos.
But that's the government put a stop on the tuna fishing because they're endangered. Like most of the species of tuna are endangered, and just by the way, not because of the anglers, but because of the commercial sector.
Which is kind of absurd because first of all,
because the angler's never going to do any comparable damage.
But I see it as hypocrisy by the Spanish government. Spanish fleet is just wiping out the stocks here in Ireland.
One of the major offenders is
both in the north and in the south. They are targeting albacores as they come close. They are targeting bluefin tuna. They are killing blue sharks, which for me is just absurd completely. But they are not allowing bluefin tuna to be taken from their own waters. It's not fair.
Right.
That's the one aspect. Then you can fish for tuna in Portugal. You can fish for tuna in Morocco. You can fish for tuna. You see, the absurd is up to the point. You cannot fish for tuna on Spanish water, but if you move 500 meters and you enter Gibraltar waters,
you're good.
You are allowed to.
Go.
It's a virtual line that no one seems to be knowing exactly where it goes through.
Right.
And then you see.
So anyway, so given all that, you said like, okay, that's enough and I want to go back to Ireland.
For me there were 2 main factors. I was diagnosed with my doctors and I was informed that I'd be facing amputation of the leg. That was the first thing. I knew that for at least a year I won't be able to do any guiding to run my own boat. Being a skipper on a boat, it takes a lot of physical strain, especially if it's not a pollock fishing boat. But you are operating something which is similar to a skiff. Fast moving, heavy water and everything. That was the one thing. And the other, when you hear that there will be introduced ban on tuna fishing. And you won't be allowed to target them
specifically for tuna fishing. Then it's like, okay,
what's the point on continuing your business?
That's it. Yeah. So you moved back to Dungarvan. And so before we're gonna go more to the present time and what you're doing right now, you also had a stint as a journalist. And you were running a fly fishing magazine.
I started with my friend first fly fishing magazine in Poland, and I used to be editor.
Right, you're right, because you in all that you've been back in Poland for a couple of years as well.
For a few years.
So you've been moving around quite a lot.
Dungarvan is. I've never lived so long in one place. It's 6 years now.
Right. Is that right?
That's the longest time for me to stay in one place.
Okay. I thought that Atlanta was the place where you were.
And meanwhile, I spent some time in Spain last year because of surgery. I spent some time in Poland. So it's not like at once.
Yeah.
I tend to move.
So you move in and out, and like in total is around 6 years.
Yeah.
Right. So anyway, so you moved back to Poland for a couple of years, and you started with your friend the fly fishing magazine. Yep. How was it? What was the idea of it? And
the idea was all the magazines that were being issued in Poland, published in Poland, they were not that interesting for us as fly fishermen.
Yeah, there was usually like a 2 pages
maximum
on the back of the magazine,
and they were all poor quality, shitty photos, poor content.
I'm sure there's some guy who's listening right now is like, what did you say? These are the best magazines. Like,
well,
yeah, I know.
What can you do?
I think we all were buying those magazines, and at some point you say, "Oh, it's great," but then
we just got to the point that we decided if we want to have a really good fly fishing magazine, the only way of going around is just starting your own.
Well,
that's what we've done.
Right.
We started a fine quality, good picture, well published magazine.
Right.
It's
was
still
the issue once a month, or was it
every 2 months?
Every 2 months.
Okay. Yeah, it's still being published, though I'm no longer
involved,
owner or kind of
okay. That's good. So that's kind of your contribution to the fly fishing world in Poland. You're one of the founders of that magazine. So it's that's very good. So and then you moved back to Ireland and
to the saltwater
fishing, back to bass fishing. And right now you're manufacturing handmade lures, and I had my own stint in setting up the business of selling handmade lures, which that's in my case I was just believing in those lures. Like, and to that day I'm doing a lot of fishing with the same type of lures I was doing like a number of years ago. So I think there's a very specific niche for handmade lures where you have all the big manufacturers, and then you have these special little.
It's just a different attitude towards the business.
But how you come with the idea to actually I'm gonna like you wake up in the morning, it's like you know what?
No. It was last year. I was after the surgery and I was stuck at home for a few months, and I was so bored, unable to go fishing, and I decided that the only way that I can connect to fishing. I had maybe 6 or 7 boxes of flies at this stage. I tied probably a few hundred flies, and I started to give them away because I ran out of the boxes, and there were flies everywhere. On my desk, on my bed, on my
that was one
everywhere.
That was one of the things when we first come to meet you in Atlanta with Tom. When Tom was like, "Look, there's a fishing present everywhere in this house. There's lures everywhere in the toilet, in the table, in the kitchen."
Look at my house now.
Yeah, I know. I have a little special photo, even like which I'm gonna publish. And I goes like, "Hey, can I photograph this?"
It's just like then there is this guy, Paul Adams, and my good friend Mel. From Mel Handmade Lures. They both helped me a lot to raise money for the prosthetic that I'm using. And Paul, he's doing a lot of do-it-yourself videos about how you can make your own lures.
All right.
And his YouTube channel is really worth watching.
All right. What's the name of the channel?
Do-it-yourself fisherman, I think.
Okay.
Paul Adams. If you search for Paul Adams, he's just a great guy.
Sure.
And then I got to the idea, like it is possible to make your own soft lures at home.
Right.
Then
That's important. That's an important point. Sorry to interrupt you, but to that point, the people who are doing their own handmade lures, they were even kind of making them from wood, using flying and just kind of putting kind of paint on it and so on, or there was some sort of the hard plastic lure. But you're doing like what's important, like you're doing like a soft lure, like a soft bait.
Yeah, and
which to be honest, I don't know many people. Actually, you're probably the only one I know of who does handmade lures. Soft plastics.
Yeah, and it all started really in primitive way. I spent 25 euros on silicon for the molds. Next, maybe 30 euros for the soft plastics in itself, and 2 or 3 colors that I had at the start. Microwave, and that's all. I don't think that I spent more than 100 euros at the start.
Sure.
And I started just to keep sanity, just to connect with fishing as I was stuck at home.
Yeah.
And I started doing them. Friends, as they were coming, they were saying, we see the improvement, They started catching fish with them.
Right. The coolest for them that they even tried. The first time. Right.
But, then I got to the point that really it might be worth thinking about starting business. What was really getting me angry is the fact that most of the companies, they moved their manufacturing to China. They are doing high volume orders, pouring soft plastics in dozens of thousands.
Yeah.
And they still charge you 8, 10, 15 euros for just few.
Oh, that's the market that regulates the price. That's rather than the worth.
Yes, I know, but my idea is, those lures are very much soulless. They are being manufactured by robots.
Oh yeah, that's
injected in thousands, sprayed by machines.
Yeah. I got what you're saying. Listen, so is that because of your background as a fly? So I think that for fly fishermen, tying flies is much more integral part of fishing craft than for a lure angler. Lure angler usually just goes to the shop and buys the lure. While for fly fishermen, it's much more natural that they actually tying the flies itself, the whole art of tying the flies. Was that fact that you had this fly fishing background made it so much more natural for you? Like, you know what? I'm gonna do my own lure, soft plastic lure, because that's the thing that anglers do. They do their own bait.
No, it's if you look at fly tying as the way of manufacturing your own lures. I'm doing it for 18 years.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of experience.
Yeah.
Then the other thing is I have a good background as being a chemist.
Yeah.
I used to work on plastic synthesis, so
it's
kind of mixing all well together. Then having education as biologist and being able to understand a bit different angles.
Yeah, the behavior of the fish. Yeah. It's
all like.
Yeah, we had that conversation before we started recording. That as a person with education in chemistry and fish biology, like, what better two traits to actually start manufacturing soft plastic lures for. And
I got to the idea, there are so many really very good fly tyers, and so many of them are my good friends.
Yeah.
I thought that getting into the market of fly tying and trying to compete with them.
Yeah.
It's just maybe not unfair, but
you have a much higher entry point, I guess.
Yeah.
To the fly. Okay, so then
that's the one thing. Then the other is I don't want to go against their own businesses.
Sure.
They
you
are
don't want
to
compete with them. You don't want to compete with them. Yeah.
They are my friends, so it doesn't seem to be okay.
Right.
I started first. I was copying the lures for myself.
Yeah.
For my own use, using ready molds. Then I started seeing,
Yeah. So then you finish the rehab, and then you just go out and actually you can start fishing with your own lures.
And I started catching fish, and I started catching more fish, and my friends started
I would imagine that's a huge satisfaction when you actually catch a fish.
Of course, but your own lure. The problem for me was that at the start, all those lures, they were some other people's designs, not mine. And I got to the point that, I was so fluent with manufacturing of soft plastic.
Yeah.
Of course, not on professional level. Just, I'm still a guy with microwave.
Yeah.
I do not have a huge company. I
Well,
do not have a factory.
But this is like a matter of the volume only, not necessarily,
Of course, but I'm
professionalism per se. Because I would imagine that your requirement, let's say that way, the requirement for professionalism is much higher because you're doing that. You handmade.
Yeah.
Doing lures, so you have an opportunity to screw up every single one, as compared to, like you said, factory in China.
I'm not into injecting them, in thousands.
Yeah.
It's just part of my life. I spend some time manufacturing lures.
Yeah.
I spend some time writing articles. I spend some time doing photography, and most of my time I spent fishing.
Yeah.
So
that's awesome.
They are not as available.
That's why you're a legend. You're a man who's living a dream. That's
living a dream.
That's what's going on. Like, everything is fishing, right? And I know quite a few people who would love to do that, and they just doing 9 to 5, and then they kind of manage to carve out a little bit time fishing, right?
I went the other way. I quit my 9 to 5 job because it was huge abstraction in my fishing.
Yeah.
Imagine this. Weather is excellent, tides are excellent, and you are stuck at work.
Yeah.
You see it through the window.
You can almost feel the fish waiting there for you.
Yeah, exactly. So I decided, this work thing is screwing my fishing too much. So I decided not to do this anymore.
Yeah. So you're living a dream. All right. Listen. So we covered a lot of your resume. What do you think? What's next for you? You're gonna. Maybe we're gonna. Before we go there, tell us how the listeners can get your lures and.
The company is called Pirate Lures.
Pirate Lures.
Okay. I don't have a leg, so I decided that, I'm a pirate.
Yeah, all right.
I have a long beard. I don't have a leg. I'm kind of rough around the edges, so Pirate Lures.
You're quite resilient.
Yeah, sounds good. Next thing, short-term plans.
So hang on. So Pirate Lures, and they so there's the website. If people just Google Pirate Lures, they get onto the website and they can buy it.
PirateLures.com, or you can find me on Facebook as a Pirate Lures.
Right. And would you like to lay it out here, like what are the present types of the lures and which one is for what? Like
at this stage, I'm doing 2 types of lures. One is for bass, one is for pike.
Right.
The bass lures are called bass streets.
Mm-hmm.
They are development of existing design from USA.
Mm-hmm.
I found the American design to be very effective, but it was lacking castability. It was just too light for me,
right,
and a bit too small. The fish that I'm targeting, I got the idea that
back to the point that we were making earlier.
Bigger lure might be a better treat for them. Hence the name bass treats.
Yeah.
So that's one type of the lure. They are very strange looking, very unusual, kind of a kind
of like a crippled fish from Mars.
Very much. They do not resemble anything that you can.
That should be your next time, like a crippled fish from Mars.
I have a better name for new lure. It will be released probably soon.
All right.
But the idea was that the secret of this lure is the movement and the action in the water.
Yeah.
That's what's tempting fish to take.
Yeah.
That's the one thing. And then there is the pike lure.
Yeah.
Which is just huge. It's 45 centimeters and 200 grams.
Right.
It's called the Arapaima.
All right.
It is not my design. It was made by my friends in Poland.
And it looks kind of like Arapaima a little bit.
A little bit, yeah.
Lovely. You fish for pike using Arapaimas.
That's very strange.
Yeah. All right. So anyone wants to get a kick-ass bass or pike lure, PirateLures.com. And they can get there and so on. Okay, so now like what's next for you? What you think? Or is it like just you take it at one day at a time and you never know?
You never know because it's just life.
Right.
The plans are first thing around September, October we are heading to do some fishing on Sahara Desert.
Oh, lovely.
That's place famous for excellent fishing.
Yeah.
And we decided that I like things which are kind of absurd. So fly fishing in Sahara seems to be
What you're fishing for?
leerfish.
Leerfish.
Bass.
Okay.
Big bass.
Okay. That's awesome.
That will be our target. And we hope to be able to make a short movie, maybe 20 minutes. That's the thing that I'm dreaming about for years now.
Sure.
Doing fishing movies.
Yeah.
Without all
brought to you by Pirate Lures.
Not really. Brought to you by ordinary normal guy.
Yeah.
Not a pro staff member. You see how cool we are. Blank. It's sponsored by.
It's just so you want to essentially show like a bit outrageous kind of fishing on Sahara Desert made by Joe Blow, so anyone can do it, kind of thing.
I just want to show that if you have a dream which is completely absurd for other people, but you really believe in it, you can really go ahead and achieve it and just do it,
Right.
As they say, it's later than it seems. The time is now.
Sure.
So the idea is we want to do it is on a budget.
Right.
Just drive a normal saloon car through the Sahara on our own. See if we are able to go to Mauritania for 500 euros each.
Sure.
Maybe 1,000 euros each on the top.
Any safety concerns?
Driving?
Oh, no, in general. I mean, like...
I think that the biggest problem might be driving at night.
Yeah.
Truck drivers.
This sort of thing. Yeah. Okay.
I think that there is this huge stigma about going to Arabic countries. People are getting this idea that if you are traveling through Morocco, there are tons of jihadists waiting for you.
Yeah. They're normal people.
Normal. Well, they are the same guys as you are.
Yeah, that's what I mean. They just go about their day.
They think about what's best for their family. Their main concern is well-being of their children, health of their children, their wife, what they will eat for a dinner, and what sort of education their children can get.
Yeah.
The idea that once you pass the Gibraltar Strait, you are entering war zone full of bloodthirsty jihadis. It's just absurd. Come on, come on.
All right, that sounds awesome. And you're saying that's going to be this year?
This year, if I'm unable to get a crew for driving, I will cycle. I'm unable to cover all the cost of car expedition on my own.
Sure.
So plan B is just to get my bike, get some sacks, get few rods, and cycle through Sahara. It was done 100 years ago.
Yeah.
It can be done every time you want.
That's awesome.
That's just the idea that you don't have to wait for this extra special moment that you will win a lotto, have extra money, have extra time, because it may never come.
I suppose that's
and if you want to do something, just go for it.
Yeah,
that's as simple as that.
Kuba, that's been awesome talking to you. Thanks very much for doing this.
Thank you very much for having me. Have a great day.
Great day. Bye.
Bye.